Hello and welcome to Sage's Tabletop Table Talks. I'm Sage, this is my tabletop, and in a rare occasion, I will not be talking with you about tabletop role-playing games, but rather I will be talking with you about a different kind of tabletop game, a card game. Particularly this card game that I had played a lot of. This is probably my favorite card game of all time, and it's WWF/WWE RAW DEAL. As you can see, some of the cards have the WWF logo, some have the it's got WWF. Where is it? There you go. He's got some have the WWE logo. And for those of you who don't know, the World Wrestling Entertainment used to be called the World Wrestling Federation. However, in I think it was like 2001, 2002, something like that, there was a lawsuit where after the third fatal incident of pandas powerbombing each other through flaming tables, the World Wildlife Foundation decided it was too confusing and they were going to sue the now WWE, World Wrestling Federation, for the initials WWF. And in a decision that can only be called rock stupid, for some reason, I'm not sure if it was a judge or people just decided that that greasy men throwing each other, play fighting in their underwear, and a company dedicated to the conservation of wildlife was too confusing for people to deal with. And so WWF, World Wrestling Federation, changed their name to World Wrestling Entertainment. So this card game was made through the transition of those. And yes, it is a licensed card game for World Wrestling Entertainment. It is now defunct. There's a group of people online called Team Canada Online, and they've continued to make sets. And to be honest, and not to throw to throw a lot of shit at Team Canada Online, their cards are fucking garbage. The big problem, and I'll talk about it, is due to the license, the game toward its end got very bad. And instead of just kind of scrapping a lot of that bad shit and kind of rebuilding the game from scratch, Team Canada Online had leaned into it and continued adding more of those very bad, stupid elements. I don't know if you follow, there is a creator named Kodak, and he talks about trading card games. And two of the trading card games since he talks about, this game does. One is life decking, and the other is unmixable attributes. For one thing, I'm just going to say, I like life decking. In fact, my two favorite card games, this and the old Dragon Ball Z card game, use life decking. But I do get the point against it. And the game used to have unmixable attributes. You could pick face or heal. I know I have face or heal cards in here somewhere. Oh wow, do I really not have any cards with a face or heal trait? I really didn't pick out any card. I grabbed a collection of cards because I thought, oh, here we go, face and heal. So some of the cards that have face and some of the cards that have heal on them. You cannot have both cards in your deck at the same time. The exception is card angle. But anyway, so how it would work is you would have so the first thing you would do, I just kind of go over it, is you'd pick your superstar. So I have John Cena here. They have a starting hand size, which is how big your starting hand size is. It's your hand size. You would have that's not a hard cap. You can make your hand as big as it needs to be. And a superstar value, which represents that wrestler's kind of fame. And whoever has a higher superstar value plays first. And then they have a little ability here. John Cena's, he has a couple of clarification text here where he talks about like, you can ignore that can only be played text on a certain card, and your card Taunt the Fans or not heal, meaning that you could play Taunt the Fans and still have John Cena play a face deck. But his main ability is when he plays maneuver, he can discard a card and force his opponent to discard 3 cards from his backlash deck. I'll talk about that in a minute. Rikishi's ability is once per turn, he can discard 2 cards, and then search his deck for any maneuver. But then what you would do is you'd play maneuver. The maneuvers, these are these little yellow cards here. Oh, no. I know I have maneuver cards down here somewhere. Sorry. Oh, here's one. They'll have the little yellow hip here. Those are maneuvers. Those are attacks. You have a fortitude cost and a damage value. That's how many cards they flip. That's how much it costs to play it. You can stop them with these red cards, which are reversals. So this one reverse any card in your opponent's turn. And then you have blue cards here, which are actions. They are kind of like sorcery in Magic the Gathering. You have your cost, and then they have a text. They usually don't do damage, and they'll do various things like this one lets you shuffle cards from your deck into your ringside pile, which is your graveyard, and arsenal, which is your library, equal to the number of raw branded cards you have. And if you notice when I was going through, and then some of them are setups. A setup, you can have up to 60 in you have a 60 card deck. You can have up to 60 of these in your deck. If a card's a setup, you can have as many of them in your deck as you want. But anyway, that's the gist of the game, is you basically play maneuvers to do damage, and your maneuver's damage value, it determines how much fortitude you get. So for example, you might have a card that deals, it'll cost like 0. Like you notice the She's Got Legs cost, by Miss Merch cost 0 too. But some maneuvers cost 0, and you can play it, and if it does 3 damage, you play it into what's called your ring area, which is your field. And so that 3 damage, you now have 3 fortitude to work with. So this card would give me an extra 20 fortitude to play with. And so it's one of the things I don't like about Raw Deal is it does create a death spiral where if you win, you keep winning. And that's a little bit of a problem, but honestly, it's a game that so many other games do. Like Pokemon does it, and all this stuff. Yu-Gi-Oh does it. It's just a game where you can create this death spiral, but enough minor nitpicks. Now, you'll notice some of these cards are sideways. And that is because this has what could be my favorite mechanic ever in a card game. You have what's called a backlash deck. The number started at 4, I think. Might have been 3. Or start at 6, you could play 3. So this is a backlash deck action, because it's sideways. And it started, you could start with, it eventually got to the point where it was like, I think 10 and 5, maybe 12 and 6. But you could have, let's say, I think 10 was the best number. 10 of these in your deck, these sideways cards in your deck. And effectively, they were as though they were in your hand the entire time. Generally, the cost was a little higher than had they would be in your deck, but that's because you basically had this 10 card hand at all times. But you can only play 5. There's exceptions, ways to get more, but generally you could have 10 and you played 5. And then we had these little purple cards. These are pre-match cards. Now, before you draw your starting hand, the first thing you do is you reveal your superstar, and then you start playing your pre-match. So whoever has the highest superstar value goes first. Let me find Cena here, because this is hilarious. So I'm playing Rikishi, my opponent's playing John Cena, and because I, as Rikishi, am more famous than John Cena, I'm higher up on the roster than John Cena, I go first. So I start and I'll play my... There are different ones, venues. That's getting really into the nitty gritty, but I could do a more in-depth, like actual how to play one of these days. But I would play my pre-match card, then he would play a pre-match card, and then he would play a pre-match card, and we go back and forth until until we played all 5 of ours, and they would do different effects. And I had a Spike Dudley deck, and I didn't find our Spike Dudley cards. So there's probably a Spike Dudley deck sitting somewhere in someone's closet. But he had a starting hand size of 0. So my pre-match deck consisted of me playing a bunch of cards that lowered my starting hand size. And doing other things, because like some cards, like there was one called Bad Blood. Your starting hand size was -3, but you got to pick out a card called Insurrection, one called Armageddon, and a superstar specific maneuver. I'll talk about superstar specifics here in a minute. But your starting hand size started at -3. Well, my hand size is 0. It can't go less than 3. And there's a funny story I had. One of the guys who played in our regular league. He was very much a problem player. Constant this. So my hand size, by the end of the pre-match phase, my Spike Dudley's deck hand size was like -8. But I would have like 6 cards in my hand that I cultivated. And then Spike Dudley's ability is you can draw 3 on your turn instead of drawing 1. So very quickly, that 0 does get gapped. And he got so mad because my starting hand size was mine. He's like, well, you have to discard number of cards to your negative hand size. I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, yeah, you do. It's not fair that you can have... And like, it was a big argument. Luckily, the judge sided with me because I was right. It was a silly little hiccup. Not a hiccup in the rules, because I don't think it was unintentional. But it was just one of those things where it's okay because it was a little trick I had in the system. But anyway, as you see, the far, far more famous Rikishi has a little logo here. It says Rikishi. And the unheard of kind of nobody, this guy, John Cena, I think his name is, has a little superstar value here of 3. He's a mid-carder. Let's be honest, this guy ain't going anywhere. This guy's not really ever going to go anywhere in professional wrestling. What year is this made? 2004. 2001. Okay, so it must have been between 2001 and 2002 they got the F out. Who the fuck's gonna... whatever, this guy. But yes, so he has this little logo too. This is another one of my favorite decks I played, and I know because I pulled some of his cards out. I got William Regal here, and he's got his little William Regal logo. Boop. And as you can see, this card has that same logo on it. This is called a superstar specific card. To put this in my deck, I have to be playing William Regal. The little logos match. But yeah, that's kind of how that works. Superstar specifics tend to be very powerful, and they tend to be thematic. William Regal's deck has a lot of cards that basically are designed to... At first, it was to get a bunch of submission holds out, and to basically cut your opponent down from playing reversals to your submission. My William Regal deck was a little different. I played a couple cards, and then I turtled up, and I just stopped everything that they played. And the best part was, so I have this card. This is I Have Been Besmirched. As an act, so this, you see how this is 2 colors, action and reversal. It's hard to read because it's shiny. Sorry, guys. So as an action, I shuffled on my deck, and my opponent discards a card. As a reversal, when overturned, so let's say my opponent, plays a body slam and does 6 damage. So I flip 1, 2, 3. Okay, on 4, boom, this shows up as a reversal when overturned. That's what that means when you take damage, you overturn cards. Reverse any non-trademark finisher maneuver and end your opponent's turn. So boom, in my graveyard, I stopped it. Because that maneuver was technically successful, it stayed in his ring area, meaning he really couldn't play it again. And then I would play a recovery card, shuffle this card back into my deck. And basically that's just what my deck did, was I just overturned reversals, and I just ate every maneuver they had until they couldn't throw anything at me anymore. It was kind of a troll deck, but I had fun with it. And sometimes you had tag teams. I find my tag team. Some of these guys are tag teams. Eminem, they are tag team. They'll say, where is it? Wait, no way. Usually they'll say you can't play any title except the tag team titles. Somewhere we had a hardcore belt. I don't know where it is. Within our group, there was a hardcore title. They have pre-match cards that are titles. They do different things. And when it came in the mail, the guy who bought it pulled the envelope out of the mail, and it was dripping wet. For those of you who've never seen the hardcore title, it looks like pieces of broken title kind of welded together. And he pulled it out, and it was curled. It had spots where it was peeled up. It was damaged, so he kept it in a sleeve, and it just kind of became a thing our group had. But anyway, yes, the tag teams usually can only play tag team titles. So as the game went on, it got worse and worse and worse, and I absolutely did not pick this card out as an example for clickbait reasons. You have face and heel cards, and face and heel cards were unmixable. And then the brand extension came, and the Raw Deal card game, due to editorial, what do you want to call it? The editorial mandate. WWE had told them that they had to create Raw and SmackDown cards. This one's Raw. Where's my SmackDown card? Oh, there's one. SmackDown. A universally unique means that only one player a unique card is one that you only can have one of. That's unique. You can only pack one. If it's universally unique, it means that you can only pack one, but if your opponent plays it before you do, you don't get the option to play it. Sorry. So that one's a face card and a SmackDown card. So you cannot put these two together because Raw and SmackDown were unmixable attributes. I'll put my dude on top here because once again, do I have any other maneuvers? Oh, I really only grabbed the one maneuver, Regal Stretch. Okay. Anyway, there's my dude. So I know there's a certain somebody who watches some of these videos, and he'll be happy to see him. Anyway, there's 5 maneuver types: grapple, submission, high risk, and strike. They're completely mixable attributes. They just inform card types. Certain cards affect certain other cards. Like, for example, the Regal Stretch will reverse submissions. So if my opponent plays a submission, the Regal Stretch I can use to counter it. But it can't be used to counter a grapple. And the 5th type are trademark finishers. Generally, a wrestler will have 1, maybe 2. Some, like Triple H and Undertaker, have 3, maybe-ish. And there's like maybe 1 or 2 generic trademark finishers. But generally speaking, they're very expensive. They're hard to pull off. And but they're also hard to reverse. And usually if you can hit your finisher, it's pretty much game over. Because, you know, that's how finishers work. In older wrestling, you know. It's not like modern wrestling where wrestlers kick out of 15 finishers in a, you know, dark match. But yeah, anyway, and there was a thing called Revolution, and all the superstar cards in Revolutions are turned sideways. And when they released Revolution, they changed the maneuver types. They are now, what are they? Assaults, throws, holds, and extremes, and trademarks. Because WWE didn't want people using the terms strike, grapple, submission, and high risk because those were insider terms. So they had to rename all the attack types. Meaning that there's now technically 9 attack types in this game. And because WWE didn't want people to say face or heel, there's my, oh, there he is. Come here. I didn't grab any of them out because I don't have a lot of them, and honestly, I stopped playing around the time this happened. But yeah, they stopped using stopped labeling cards as often face and heel, and they became labeled cheater and fan favorite because face and heel are insider terms, and they weren't supposed to use it for us marks. So as the time went on, they became more and more and more unmixable attributes. But I think the worst decision that they ever made was certain superstars were all superstars were branded. For example, since Rob Van Dam was on Raw, all of his cards after the brand extension had the Raw logo. Okay, fine. Now what happens when he got traded to SmackDown 2 years later? Well, now you have to brand his cards SmackDown or unbrand his cards, and it just created a mess that should have never been. But once again, editorial mandate. One of the other issues with the editorial mandate was certain superstars like Undertaker, if they weren't like top tier competitive, they were basically told, the people who designed the game were kind of told they had to power him up with new cards because there were certain guys that they wanted to see basically winning every tournament. Because this is WWE and politics is politics. Wrestling politics is wrestling politics. Forever, Right to Censor were like the top tier deck. And it's so funny. And so like just card after card after card that were just designed to nerf Right to Censor. The other thing that kind of hurt the game was guys would quit the company. For example, Rikishi quit the company. So he stopped getting cards, meaning all this investment you had into making your Rikishi deck. I mean, let's be honest, this dude here, the superstar value of 4, literally 1 less than the Undertaker. He had the same superstar value as the Undertaker. Undertaker had a 4. Stone Cold Steve Austin had a 5. Rock had a 5. So this dude here, Rikishi, let's remember, this dude considered on par with the Undertaker. And a lot of you being like, who the fuck's Rikishi? That's exactly what makes this fucking hilarious. Some of the Chris Benoit cards were very unfortunately named too. Like one of Chris Benoit's card was called Victim of the Crippler. And there's some dark jokes that could be made there, but I'm not gonna go there here. Anyway. Kind of switch on. Yeah, but like I said, a lot of editorial mandate kind of hurt. Right to Censor, like I said, forever was just this beast of a deck. They had 3 of the best lockdown cards in the game. They had a stipulation called Censorship Match, where they named a card and nobody could play that card. So they throw a card down and they just pick a card and nobody can play that card. They had one called Censored that could reverse any, it was free, 0 cost, reverse any card. You looked at their hand, discarded all copies of said reversed card, and then you went through their deck and removed all copies of that card, reverse card from that. So you reversed the card and then just sent all copies of it to the graveyard. And they had a card called Right to Interfere, which was a mid-match 0. They had to have less fortitude than their opponent, but it did 7 damage to the opponent and did 4 to you. And they had another card that let them just search their opponent's deck for any 6 actions and send it to the graveyard. So like Right to Censor could just lock an opponent down with the right hand easy. Oh, and their ability was they could put their hand at the bottom of the deck and draw a new hand, so every turn. So if they didn't have what they had in their hand, they got basically a mulligan from it. And they didn't have to do it during the draw segment. You could play the card that was in your hand you wanted to play, and then mulligan through. So yeah, they were just really good at locking down, and so WWE didn't like the fact that a stable that wasn't part of their thingy anymore was like dominating the game, so like they did everything they could to quash it. One of the interesting things about Raw Deal too was that They ban cards very, very rarely, and usually only for a set until they fixed it. Generally, if a card was considered broken, they would just release cards that would be designed to unbreak it. There's a card called Enter the Stratosphere. Discard a card, your opponent takes 2 damage, and it wasn't actual damage, but basically, a lot of decks could easily cheat 3 copies out. And because drawing cards in this game means nothing, it's so easy to build a hand up. They would draw a bunch of cards and then just boom, 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 cheat 6 damage on next turn. Keep the hand up, draw, cheat 6 damage, boom, boom, boom. And so, for a long time, the game had so many cards that were designed to just stop you from playing actions. And a huge part of that was the Stratosphere strategy. But anyway, yeah. So like I said, this was probably my favorite card game of all time. Me and a bunch of my friends, and I actually met some friends through playing this card game. I mean, decades. I probably played this for a decade at least, if not longer. But yeah. So this is it. I could do another review. I could do a more in-depth thing, talk a little bit more about the card game. If there's any particular superstars stuff that you would like to see, or maybe things that I mentioned that need to be clarified, I can do that in a later video. But yeah, I just want to kind of gush on this card game that I absolutely adored. And I kind of breezed over it because honestly, it's so simple. But I just think the Backlash deck was one of the most brilliant things ever made in a card game. Like, there's this idea where you could just, like, you had a hand on you at all times that you could play, and if you had a dead hand, the reason you had a dead hand was because your Backlash deck wasn't put together the right way, as opposed to just having an unfortunate draw. It's like, there are cards you could play that could cheat so many cards out. But anyway, yeah. So this was fun. I enjoyed it. I'll be back talking about tabletop role-playing games next week. But yeah, have fun.